Hello and welcome to the first Plug Life television episode of 2019. How have you all been? I know it's been a little while, it's been a very busy few months. This happened, and this happened, which is nice. So given the cold snap that we've just had, I thought it would be quite fitting to look at how the cells in an electric vehicle's battery pack cope with colder weather in a bit more detail. During cold winter months, many EV drivers notice that their vehicle's range decreases and the time taken to rapid charge increases. For example, my own 24 kWh Nissan Leaf has a range of about 80 miles in summer and will rapid charge from empty to 80% in about 30 minutes. But in bitter cold winters its range can decrease to about 60 miles per charge, and rapid charging speeds feel, well, will Busby have finished charging upon the morrow? I don't know, my dear child. Very well, but can we at least have the heating on? Okay, so I do exaggerate, but it does take a wee bit longer to rapid charge in winter than it does in warmer weather. So why is this? There are two main reasons, the first of which is the internal resistance of the cells in the battery pack. When the pack is at an ambient temperature, the electrolyte isn't overly viscous, so the cell's kinetics are good. This means that the lithium ions can easily travel between the electrodes, in this case from the anode to the cathode during discharge. However, at very low temperatures, the electrolyte becomes more viscous. This means the kinetics become poorer, so it is harder for the lithium ions to travel between the electrodes. This increases the internal resistance of the cell, which in turn increases its overpotential. The overpotential of a cell is the difference in its voltage when it's resting and the voltage shortly after it begins to charge or discharge. Since Ohm's law says that voltage is equal to current multiplied by resistance, and in this case the voltage in question is the overpotential, we can expect a bigger drop in voltage when the cell begins to discharge at lower temperatures and therefore with a higher internal resistance. The increased overpotential means that the cell hits its minimum voltage quicker during discharge than it would at higher temperatures, which means that a cell that is fully discharged at low temperatures can provide less energy than a cell that is fully discharged at its optimum temperature of 25 degrees C, with a resultant loss in range. So now we know that an increase in overpotential leads to the decrease in discharge voltage and decrease in range, but it also leads to an increase in charge voltage, which has implications for rapid charging. To understand this implication further, it is important to know that the voltage of a cell is actually the potential difference between its two electrodes. However, the potential of each electrode cannot be measured in isolation. It needs some sort of reference to measure it against. This is where standard electrode potentials come in. The measurement of all potentials stems from the one electrode that rules them all, the standard hydrogen electrode, or SHE. It is made of a platinum wire bubbled with 1 atmosphere's pressure of hydrogen gas in 1 molar concentration of an acidic solution at 25 degrees C. This has been assigned the potential of 0 volts and is the standard against which all potentials are measured. For example, if we take a lithium electrode, again at 25 degrees C, 1 atmosphere's pressure, and in an electrolyte of 1 molar concentration, and complete the circuit between the two electrodes using a salt bridge for the ionic conductivity and a wire for electrical conductivity, we can measure the potential difference between the two electrodes. Since we know that the standard hydrogen electrode is 0 volts, the voltage reading is equal to the potential of the other electrode. In lithium-ion electrochemistry, all electrode potentials are expressed versus lithium. For example, if the cathode potential is 3.5 volts versus lithium and the anode potential is 0.5 volts versus lithium, the full cell voltage is 3 volts. Note that only the full cell voltage, the potential difference between the two terminals, is measurable on a commercial 2-electrode lithium-ion cell. It is only by opening up the cell, adding a third reference electrode, such as one made of lithium foil, and getting the cell to behave like nothing has happened to it, that we can understand what each electrode is doing in isolation. Incidentally, this is something I've become quite adept at doing over the years. When a lithium-ion cell is rapid charged, the cathode voltage increases as it loses lithium, but the anode voltage decreases as it gains lithium. At an optimum charging temperature and current, a conventional graphite anode approaches 0 volts versus lithium as it approaches 100% state of charge, but does not reach 0 volts unless being rapid charged with too high a current or at too low a temperature. At lower temperatures, however, the increased overpotential of the cell results in a decrease of the anode potential. If the rapid charging current is too high, the anode eventually reaches 0 volts versus lithium. At this point, it is no longer electrochemically favourable for the lithium ions to pigeonhole themselves into the graphite structure. Instead, they plate onto the surface of the anode, forming branch-like growths called dendrites, which puncture the separator between the two electrodes and form an internal short circuit, which rapidly discharges the cell, creates lots of heat, and can lead to the venting of flammable gases and even fire. Even when lithium plating is taking place, the full cell voltage can appear to be fine as long as the cathode doesn't go above the maximum potential of the full cell. As alluded to previously, the EV's battery management system can read the full cell voltage fine, but has no way of determining the cathode or anode potentials individually, and so is oblivious to any lithium plating taking place. The BMS could technically monitor the potential of each electrode in isolation if the cell had a third reference electrode made of lithium, but this is only done in the lab. Again, looking at Ohm's law, we see that the only way to reduce the overpotential when the cell has a higher internal resistance, such as when the cell is very cold, is to reduce the charging current, which in turn increases rapid charging times. So how can you maximise winter range and decrease rapid charging times? Some EVs have battery heaters installed in them which preheat the pack and alleviate the worst of the impact of winter weather. For EVs that don't have this feature, the advantage of the cell's increased internal resistance in cold weather is that they act as mini heaters and self-heat themselves up to an optimum temperature eventually during charging and driving, which is good news on longer journeys. During extremely low temperatures, it is wise to set the charging timer on your EV to finish charging shortly before you leave the house, and to set the cabin heating timer to preheat the cabin too. That way, the batteries are still comparatively warm after their charging session, and the cabin has been heated off the mains without using battery power. On longer trips, avoid using cabin heating as much as possible until you reach rapid chargers, where you can heat up the cabin whilst rapid charging. Of course, with the advent of the likes of the Hyundai Kona, Tesla Model 3 and Chevrolet Bolt that can all do hundreds of miles on a single charge, even the winter range of modern EVs is quickly becoming a non-issue. So I hope that's given you a better understanding of why you lose a bit of range in an electric vehicle in winter, aside from having the heater on and so on, why the battery loses a bit of range even if you didn't have the heating on, or the lights on, or the wipers. It gives you an understanding of where that range disappears to and how it's able to come back in the summer. Also, when it comes to rapid charging, hopefully you'll have a bit more sympathy for your EV now. The battery management system is just making sure, in the absence of a reference electrode in any of the cells, given the cells are a black box system, you can't tell what each electrode is doing in isolation. It's just put some very conservative temperature-based limits on it so that when it's rapid charging, it's not pushing the anode a bit too hard and causing lithium plating. So it's entirely for safety reasons. But with the advent of new cell chemistries coming through the lab which can operate at higher performance over a wider temperature range, we'll soon find that tapering off in rapid charging performance in colder weather is certainly is reduced considerably with new generations of cell chemistries, I would have thought. So there's a number of interesting events coming up over the next few weeks that I'll be attending and giving talks at, starting with the Home Energy Scotland Domestic Battery Storage Information Evening in Edinburgh at the Edinburgh Centre for Carbon Innovation High School Yards. That's on the 19th of February at 6 p.m. Make sure you register for that one. Also, I'll be giving a talk about electric vehicles and why you wish you'd have bought one sooner at the Dundee EV Roadshow. That's in my adopted home city and the undisputed EV capital of Europe, Dundee, on Saturday the 2nd of March. That's an all-day event. There'll be plenty of EVs for you to test drive. Chris Ramsey from Plug-in Adventures will be giving talks as well. There's lots going on, and I just recommend going to Dundee for a day trip anyway because it's a fantastic city and I love it dearly. I'll also be giving a presentation at the Scottish Tesla Owners Club meeting on the 16th of March, and rounding out March with my talk at the Electric Vehicle Association of Scotland, EVA Scotland AGM. So if you are a full member, you'll see me there. And if you're not a full member yet, sign up, pay the full membership and come along, because they're doing a damn fine job to improve the infrastructure for electric vehicles in Scotland and really champion the cause. So that's what's going to be keeping me busy over the next few weeks or so, but fear not, there's plenty more to come from Plug Life Television throughout 2019, including an exciting new series to look out for, so keep your eyes peeled for that one. See you again soon.